Hello and welcome to this staff training on emotionally based school avoidance, EBSA awareness. My name is Sam Hendy, my pronouns are she, her, and I am an education mental health practitioner or an EMHP. And I work within the Open Minds Partnership, working for the Mental Health Support Team or MHST in schools. And that's part of the Open Minds Partnership CAMHS, where they deliver one-to-one specialist mental health interventions for children and young people, offering advice and signposting to other services, and resources for young people, parents, carers, and professionals. We also offer access to Swift within the Getting More Help team. We also house our neurodevelopmental support and assessment services as well. So the key aims of today's training are to understand what emotionally based school avoidance is, or EBSA, to be able to identify young people who may be experiencing EBSA, to know some strategies for supporting young people experiencing EBSA, and to know when and how to refer to specialist mental health services. Talking about mental health can feel sensitive, so please be aware of how you're feeling as we go. If you need to pause, take a break, and if anything feels difficult, reach out to someone for support. So what is EBSA? Well, EBSA is different from absence for physical illness and truancy. For some pupils, it may be obvious in their presentation of extended non-attendance and distress, but for others, they may not be so easily identifiable. These pupils may have inconsistent attendance, missing odd days or particular lessons. Others may attend but will disengage from some lessons and/or other school activities. Anxiety is a significant component of EBSA. Heightened levels of anxiety having a significant impact on daily life and ability to attend school settings. Some young people with EBSA may seem to cope well in school or in certain lessons or even social situations. This can sometimes hide the difficulties they're experiencing and lead to some misunderstandings. Even so, many of these young people still value education and want to be in school, even when it feels too hard to attend. Non-attendance doesn't just mean being off school for long periods or regularly missing whole days. It can also look like a young person avoiding their classroom, leaving lessons, skipping certain subjects, or steering clear of particular spaces or people. As you listen today, ask yourself, how do our attitudes as a whole school shape the way that we respond to EBSA? Are we ever making assumptions or comments that might not be helpful? And are we remembering that a young person's anxiety often eases at weekends or during the school holidays, which can make the situation seem less serious than it really is? EBSA impacts both primary and secondary settings and can have a wide and lasting impact on both young people and schools. For young people, it's linked with increased anxiety or low mood, tension at home, lower academic progress, fewer social opportunities, and, later on, limited employment options. We also know that EBSA is associated with poorer mental health in adulthood. When we think about the causes of EBSA, are we reminding ourselves that there's rarely just one reason? Are we considering how different factors interact for each young person and recognising that every child's situation is unique? In consideration of the causes of EBSA, it's important to remember that difficulties with school attendance can come from different areas of a young person's life. Some factors relate to the child themselves, things like anxiety, low mood, difficulties with emotional regulation, past trauma, low self-esteem, special educational needs, or attachment difficulties. Other factors come from the family or their home environment. These might include changes at home, high levels of stress, parental mental health difficulties, a family history of EBSA, bereavement, or the young person taking on a caring role. And then there are the school-based factors, such as big transitions, challenges with peers or staff, academic pressure, bullying, or finding certain subjects especially difficult. All of these different areas can interact, and each young person's experience will look very different. So how can we identify young people who might be experiencing EBSA? There are a number of early signs that a young person may be struggling with attendance. We might notice changes in their overall attendance pattern, or see that they're reluctant to leave home, or even to leave their parent or carer at the school gate. You may also spot frequent absences for minor illnesses, or a pattern emerging where certain days or specific lessons are regularly missed. Sometimes a young person will tell us they want to attend lessons but feel unable to follow through. They may also appear preoccupied with worries about people at home. And finally, we might see signs of underachievement or a dip in their progress. All of these can be important indicators that something deeper is going on. There are also emotional and behavioural signs that we need to be aware of. We may notice a young person becoming more socially withdrawn, avoiding their peers, or spending long periods alone. Some might show challenging behaviours, which can sometimes be a way of expressing anxiety or overwhelm. You may also see severe emotional reactions on school days. Things like fearfulness, tearfulness, temper outbursts, or saying that they feel unwell. Physical symptoms can also appear, such as headaches, stomach aches, or feeling sick, particularly in the mornings. And over time, a young person might develop low mood or begin to feel isolated, which can gradually erode their self-esteem. All of these signs, especially when they appear together or over time, can suggest a young person is struggling and needs support. When we're identifying which young people might benefit from EBSA support, there are a few key things to look for. First, motivation is really important. The young person needs to want things to change, and they need to want to be in school or in lessons, even if that currently feels difficult. We also need parents or carers on board. Their support and their encouragement around returning to school makes a huge difference. It's also essential that the avoidance is emotionally driven, not caused by a lack of interest in education or a complete unwillingness to attend. Before putting EBSA support in place, we should make sure any practical issues have been addressed, such as bullying or other environmental barriers. And finally, EBSA support is most effective when attendance issues are relatively recent, rather than long-term or entrenched patterns of non-attendance. All of these elements help us understand whether a young person is in the right place to benefit from EBSA intervention. When supporting a young person with EBSA, our next steps are really about understanding what's going on beneath the surface. We want to explore the barriers together with the young person and with their parent or carer. This includes looking at both the push factors, making school feel difficult, and the pull factors, making home feel safer. We'll come back to this in more detail shortly. From there, we start thinking about possible solutions. This works best when we stay curious and open to what the young person is telling us. It's also important to approach the process with compassion, recognising the real emotional distress that often sits behind school avoidance. Collaboration is key. Supporting a young person effectively means working together, school staff, families, and the young person themselves. And we need to be flexible. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to EBSA, so each plan needs to be tailored to that young person's needs. Finally, staying open-minded helps us move away from assumptions and keeps us focused on what will genuinely help that young person move forward. Our next steps start with a conversation. We want to talk with the young person and their parents or carers to check how they feel about receiving support and whether they're ready to engage with the process. From there, we explore the young person's perspective and what they feel is getting in the way, and what barriers or difficulties they're facing when it comes to attending school. Once we understand the barriers, we can start thinking about practical solutions. What adaptations might help here? Do we need to be more flexible in our approach? It can be useful to consider this from different angles. What could school do? What could parents or carers do? And what small steps could the young person take themselves? Finally, it's important to book in regular review meetings so everyone stays aligned. Progress can be monitored and support can be adjusted when needed. When you're preparing for an EBSA meeting, start by thinking about who really needs to be there. who has a positive relationship with the young person, who will they feel safe talking to, and who needs to be kept in the loop about any plans that we put in place. Being intentional about this makes a huge difference. Next, we agree on a goal together. It needs to be realistic, achievable, and most importantly, it needs to be something that the young person actually wants. We're not aiming for perfection, we're aiming for progress. From there, we talk through how we'll support them, and we make sure we hear the young person's voice clearly in that process. We explore the barriers they're facing, including the pull and push factors, and we also check in with parents or carers about what they're seeing and what feels helpful from their point of view. Finally, we pull everything together into a written plan, something that the young person, the parent or carer, and the school all contribute to. And we make sure to set a timescale for reviewing it so we can see what's working and what might need to change. Helpful areas to explore. When we're trying to understand what might be contributing to a young person's difficulties with school, it's really helpful to step back and look at the whole picture. A good starting point is to think about their strengths. What do they enjoy? What do they do well? And what's going right for them at the moment? This gives us a more balanced view and can guide us in building on what already works. Then we can explore any areas where they might be finding things harder. Are there specific difficulties that the young person or staff have noticed? It's also important to look at their relationships, both with peers and with adults in school. Are friendships a source of support or something that feels challenging? How do they tend to respond to different adults in the school environment? We might also think about how they cope with academic tasks. Do they feel confident, overwhelmed? Do certain types of work trigger more anxiety? And finally, it's useful to explore how they experience different parts of the school day. How do they manage the physical environment, the noise, movement, crowds, transitions? Are there particular times of the day or social situations that feel especially tough? For example, arriving at school, break times, lining up to go into school, lunch times, going home, getting changed for PE. And are there certain lessons or activities within lessons that they find more challenging than others? All of these areas help us build a clearer understanding of what the young person needs and how we can best support them moving forward. A tool often used by adults working with students showing school anxiety is to offer children and young people the opportunity to review their timetable and places around school, identifying which lessons and areas are associated with a lot, some, or no anxiety. Using a red, amber, and green anxiety code may help with this. Bear in mind that some children and young people may experience anxiety just by thinking about some lessons, or lunchtime, or break time, or transition to or from school, and may need the support of an empathetic adult during this activity. Exploration of the issues arising from this can provide useful information. A useful way to explore what could be contributing to EBSA is to talk about push-pull factors. By this, we mean what pushes them away from school and what pulls them to home. These questions help to explore whether there are specific things about school which the young person finds challenging, or things at home which might make coming to school challenging, such as worries about home or lack of boundaries, etc. These conversations can help to identify areas of focus for change or adaptations or goals to work on. It can be helpful to be aware of the differences between push and pull factors when attempting to identify those at risk of EBSA. They are likely to be present across all of the influences in a young person's life, and so it can be very useful to identify and analyse them. Let's have a look here at some examples of push-pull factors. So a push factor related to school could be limited friendships or poor relationships with teaching staff, or that a young person might be struggling academically with certain subjects. A push factor related to home might be that home is noisy, quite chaotic, they don't have access to phone or social media. Now looking at the pull factors related to home, this is the factor that might make them think that home is a safe space and they want to stay at home, is that home feels safe. There might not be any expectations at home. They might not have a routine in place and they might be able to stay in bed. Examples of pull factors related to school could be friendships that are made. They don't want to miss out on things happening in school. And it might be that they want to be away from home and they get that chance to be away from home. When we're putting an EBSA plan together, it really needs to be done collaboratively. Ideally in a meeting with the young person, their parents or carers, and the key school staff who know them well. One of the first things we do is set out the barriers from the young person's point of view. What feels hard for them? What's getting in the way? Hearing it directly from them is essential. We also make space to write down the positives. What's going well in school? What do they enjoy? What are the things that they feel comfortable with? These strengths help us shape the plan in a way that feels achievable for them. From there, we agree on the adaptations or changes that will support their attendance. And this isn't just about what school will do. It includes what the young person feels able to commit to and what parents or carers can help with at home. We take a graded approach, moving at a pace that feels manageable. The steps need to be small enough that they feel achievable, but meaningful enough to build confidence over time. Finally, we make sure everything is written down clearly and we agree a date for the next review meeting. That way, everyone knows the plan, everyone understands their part in it, and we can check in regularly to see how things are going and what might need adjusting. Continue the plan with a plan, do, review, assess framework. The next few slides take you through some of the emotional health and wellbeing support on offer from the Open Minds Partnership, should you feel that that is needed. In terms of referrals, here are some of our frequently asked questions in terms of referrals into Open Minds, what makes a good referral, and what happens once a referral to Open Minds has been made. Please don't forget our wonderful Silver Cloud digital mental health support offer, available for young people, parents and carers for a range of different presentations. Thank you for listening to today's workshop on EBSA. I really hope you took something away from it today. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch.